In 2008, Kimberly Jacobs was a loving mother and grandmother, a world traveler, and living in one of the most beautiful places in the world, Waikiki, Hawaii. By all outward appearances, Kimberly had a great life. On August 21st, 2008, Kimberly was having a bad day. I mean, we've all had them. Her back was hurting. They had just discovered a leak in their apartment. And she was having difficulty with a tenant in one of her rentals. Around 6:15 p.m., Kimberly's husband Stan asked if she wanted to go to the Condo Board Association meeting with him, but she really wasn't feeling up to it, and she told him to go on without her. When he returned at 7:45 p.m., Kimberly was not home, but all of her personal belongings were there, including her wallet, purse, keys, and cell phone. Kimberly hasn't been seen or heard from since. Where is Kimberly Jacobs? If you are new here, thank you so much for supporting our show and our mission to spread awareness of these unsolved cases. The Kimberly Jacobs story is frustrating for many reasons. The family has continued to push for answers, but it seems not a lot of people are paying attention. Kimberly was born June 30th, 1961 in Los Angeles, California. Not a lot is known about her life prior to her disappearance, but we do know that she has a daughter, Autumn, and would eventually move to Hawaii. In 2015, she married Stan Jacobs. A year later, she would welcome her first grandchild. Kimberly loved her family so much. Everyone can attest to the fact that she loved her daughter and granddaughter beyond measure. Kimberly has a bachelor's degree in sociology from the University of California in San Diego and a master's degree in education from the University of San Francisco. And she had even been talking about going back to school for her PhD in gentrology. She was really looking forward to what the future held for her in terms of her education and especially watching and being a part of her beautiful granddaughter's life. On August 21st, 2018, Kimberly and Stan had recently returned to their home in Waikiki from an overseas trip. And on that day, Kimberly found herself having a rough day. She was suffering with some backaches. They had discovered a leak in their apartment, and she was having some difficulty with a tenant in one of her rental properties in California. That evening, around 6 p.m., Stan asked Kimberly if she was going to attend the condo board meeting with him. She said she was tired and her back was hurting, and Stan told her to just stay home and rest. He left to attend that meeting shortly after. When he returned home around 7:45 p.m., Kimberly wasn't there. He noticed that all of her belongings were, though, her purse, her cell phone, and her keys. But he figured she just probably went out to visit a friend nearby, as she often did. Kimberly didn't come home that night, but Stan still wasn't too worried. Meanwhile, Kimberly's friend that lived in Oregon was trying to reach her, with no luck. And after quite some time passed, this friend reported Kimberly missing. Investigators showed up at Kimberly and Stan's condo, and Stan welcomed them in. When they asked why he hadn't reported Kimberly missing, he simply said, "I wouldn't know what to do with her when I found her." That is the oddest thing to say about your missing wife. But police have said they investigated Stan thoroughly and said he'd always been 100% cooperative with them. They don't consider him a suspect. They start canvassing the area and looking for any sign of Kimberly anywhere, but they find absolutely nothing. Her disappearance doesn't make sense. The one thing that her family and friends keep saying is that she would never, ever leave her daughter and granddaughter. She was also very close with her sister, and none of them have heard anything from her. Her apartment complex, Diamond Head Apartments, is a large oceanfront community, and if you're familiar with Waikiki, it's a pretty populated place. It's hard to imagine Kimberly could have walked away somewhere from there and nobody saw her, especially considering she was well known and well liked. There were no motives of any kind that police could find for someone wanting to bring harm to Kimberly. And Kimberly deciding to leave on her own wasn't something that anyone believed, also, except maybe Stan. During one interview, he said that she loved the ocean and sailing, and he thought she probably got on a sailboat somewhere and just sailed away. And I really hate pointing fingers at someone who might be hurting just as bad as everyone else when a loved one goes missing. But either he's suspicious or he's just a little weird for saying these things. Stan would also go on to have some vigils for Kimberly in Honolulu, but never invited or included any of her family members. And it is interesting that he would hold a vigil for someone that he thought probably just left him. Here is a clip from an interview Stan did shortly after Kimberly disappeared.
Real difficult to spend any time by myself because then the memories of Kimberly just come flooding in.
Especially here at the Elks Club, which was a favorite hangout for the couple.
We would sit out here and hug, and Kimberly loves the ocean. We'd go out for swims from here. She made it the spot to bring our granddaughter.
But 10 months ago, Kimberly vanished from their Waikiki apartment without a trace.
All of Kimberly's stuff was still in the house when I came home, and she wasn't. Her cell phone, we'd just gotten back from a foreign trip, so her passport, her cards, her cash.
For Stan, the only explanation for Kimberly's disappearance is tied to the ocean she loves so much.
For her to have left, the only thing that makes sense, it's not the only possibility, but the only thing that makes sense is for her to have gotten on a sailboat.
Numerous searches turned up nothing of the 47-year-old woman who walks with a limp. As days without Kimberly stretched into weeks, then months, some turned their suspicion to Stan for the disappearance, a suspicion he understands.
I'd seen the same TV movie of the week that everybody else had, and it was always the spouse that did it, and only after Kimberly went missing that I find out that there's a statistical reason for that, and the only two people in the world that know I didn't do anything to Kimberly are Kimberly and me.
Instead of dwelling on the dark memory of her disappearance, Stan is instead trying to focus on an important day in Kimberly's life.
And June 30th is Kimberly's birthday. She'll be 48, and we're inviting a bunch of people here to the Elks to help commemorate her birthday and hopefully get the word out that she's still missing.
Kimberly's family started a blog, KimberlyJacobs.blogspot.com, and there are references there from different people regarding their suspicion of Stan. But I have questions. We have zero evidence of anything. They lived in a populated condo apartment complex in busy Waikiki. Their apartment, Diamond Head Apartments, is right next to the Diamond Hill Park area, also the infamous dormant Diamond Hill volcano. But this is a touristy area and people are everywhere. Did no one see Kimberly on that day to verify her whereabouts at any time during the day? For instance, can we even confirm she was at the condo or apartment that day to verify Stan's story? And if she was, how did no one see her leave? Or is there no surveillance footage nearby to see her coming or going? I know her phone was left behind and her apartment yielded no clues to her whereabouts at all. But law enforcement hasn't given the public any information to go on for possibilities or motives, if they even have any information. So what theories do we have? Theory number 1. Kimberly disappeared with someone, leaving the island. This is what Stan has hinted to a few times. He said Kimberly loved the ocean and sailing and was adventurous and active, and this is probably what she did. However, he doesn't seem that worried about her, and every other single person in her life said there is no way Kimberly would ever do that, leaving behind her family. No one else believes this. So, is this a case of Stan knowing his wife better than anyone else? Or a case of Stan trying to throw suspicion off of himself? Kimberly has never taken off before, and we are now 12 and a half years later. There have been no sightings and no sign of Kimberly. Even if she had taken off, it's likely she would have reached out to someone by now. Or did she maybe take off on her own and met up with foul play or an accident after the fact? Theory number 2, Stan Jacobs. He is an interesting character, saying some odd things about his missing wife. He didn't even report her missing. Stan actually reminds me a bit of Gloria McDonald's husband, Daniel. Gloria McDonald vanished from Mena, Arkansas, and shortly after, her husband was quoted saying something to the effect of, "I don't know why anyone would kidnap her. She certainly isn't attractive." What is with these guys? Stan seemed to show a lack of emotion, except when the cameras were turned on him. But again, not everyone shows emotions the same way. The other thing I find odd about Stan is how he proceeded to hold some vigils locally for Kimberly, which I really don't know why he would do that if he thought that she had left him and just ran off. But he did, and he didn't even invite any of Kimberly's family to attend. Again, we don't know the whole story about his relationship with the family, but I still think it's odd. Theory number 3, is there an unknown suspect involved? Someone else that was maybe involved in Kimberly's life? Many times when people go missing, secret lives and relationships are exposed, sometimes many years later. Could this be the case here with Kimberly? Maybe Stan's lack of emotions isn't due to him being involved in her disappearance, but maybe their relationship wasn't all that it was thought to be. They had only been married for 3 years, although I'm not sure how long they were together prior. Very suspicious circumstances, but really not a whole lot is known. This beautiful 47-year-old, smart, happy, outgoing, and active mother and grandmother vanished without a trace. Literally without a trace. Kimberly was declared legally dead in 2013, I'm guessing for reasons involving properties and assets, which I do understand. And I'm also guessing that Stan, as her husband, was the one who had to facilitate this. What do you think happened to Kimberly Day Jacobs? What's your take on Stan Jacobs? Suspicious character or unfairly judged by the public? Kimberly is described as a Caucasian woman, 5 foot 4 inches tall and 130 pounds at the time she disappeared. She was likely wearing a black dress, her wedding ring, and a few other rings. And at that time, in 2008, Kimberly had brown hair and brown eyes. Due to a childhood bout with polio, Kimberly's right foot is slightly bent inward and she walks with a very distinct limp. She may also be using the last name Day. If you have any information on the whereabouts of Kimberly Day Jacobs, please contact the Honolulu Police Department at 808-529-3115. Thank you so much for listening to Kimberly's story. Her granddaughter, who she adored so much, was just 2 years old when she vanished. She would now be a teenager. This family needs answers. For more information and photos, please check out the family's blog, kimberlydayjacobs.blogspot.com. Sharing Kimberly's story will help. We will be back again next week with another unsolved missing person case on our regularly scheduled show. And until then, stay safe and hug your loved ones.